What is up, Gas Money Nation? It's Robert and Austin with the Inside Gas Money podcast, and today we have a very special guest for our latest episode in our Gas Money Mentions series. In this series, we interview business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals to gather insights about their journey and, more importantly, generate valuable learning opportunities for young adults who are passionate about entrepreneurship. Today, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Ethan Forberg, who is the founder and president of the Group for Artificial Intelligence Navigation at Florida State University, otherwise known as GAIN. In this episode, we discuss Ethan's experiences in launching his campus-wide AI initiative, improving his leadership skills, and discuss thoughts on artificial intelligence. As always, we hope you guys enjoy this episode, get some learning opportunities from it, and if you have a business of your own, always feel free to reach out to us and hop on the podcast yourself. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Ethan Forberg.
I started GAIN last year in the spring. I was seeing a lot of development around AI, and obviously I was concerned for not only my job, but jobs of other students as well. So I said, let's get active, let's get involved, let's start a AI initiative that's all around campus. So we do different workshops and speaker events about AI. So we've done AI in marketing, AI in coding, writing. I just did an event in the College of Law today, and we also do speaker events. So I had a senior AI engineer from IBM come on to campus and talk to kids. And then actually tomorrow, we're having 3 seniors from KPMG come out to talk about their $2 billion investment in AI.
Awesome. And I know you mentioned that you started it because obviously with AI kind of expanding a lot more, there's a lot of talk about jobs getting replaced, which obviously could be a very potential thing in the future. Was that really the original cause of starting it, just getting more awareness for college students?
Yeah. Honestly, at first I was very scared of it. So I remember I'd just be up late at night reading AI is going to take over the world. AI is going to kill us all. So I was on that for a while. I was going down those rabbit holes, which aren't good for you. But then I was actually began to get involved in doing work and doing projects. That's the biggest thing that we try and do is get kids doing small projects in our workshop so they actually interact with the tools and the models. And with that, they actually understand the strengths and limitations, because it's very easy to just sit on the outside and say, it's this, it's not this. But when you're actually working with it, you start to actually understand what it is, what it can do, the limitations. And that's the best way to really adapt to anything.
Because there's a lot of like surface knowledge about AI, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of it is the more understanding and how you can use it, how it can benefit you, and not being scared of, it taking over you, kind of.
Yeah, I don't claim to have too deep of a knowledge. I have a working understanding. I'd say most people have less than a surface knowledge. That makes sense. A lot of people just speculate and then listen to the people on Twitter or the people leading these AI labs. I don't think either they're good sources, but they're not the end all be all, because an AI influencer on Twitter, as a lot of people call them, they end up just a lot of either fear mongering or over promising. And one of the biggest things with people coming from AI labs as well, which is a lot of people think they're a very trustworthy source, but they're also a unreliable narrator in a lot of these things, because Sam Altman, for example, he runs the leading AI lab. I guess they're still a lab. They're almost a for-profit company at this point, but I guess they're still a lab. Nonprofit lab. Yeah. A lot of controversy around that. But he was an entrepreneur before he did OpenAI. And as you guys know, an entrepreneur has to have absolute belief in their mission. They can't waver. So his goal is creating an AI that's smarter than a human. So he'll never say anything against that, because that's his mission. He has to be singularly focused on it. So that's something I don't see a lot of people bring up either. You have people in the lab saying, oh, we're close. Elon Musk, since 2018, has been saying full self-driving next year. But what's happened is it's hard to be perfect, and no one's really comfortable handing power over to systems until they're 100%. They could be 99%, but we're still almost there with self-driving, and no one thinks we're actually really all that close. So that's the one thing I don't see people bring up is that the leaders of these labs and these projects, they have to have absolute faith in themselves. So their statements are going to be super, it's happening. And it's actually surprising a lot of people just take it at face value. Now a lot of people think, well, you have to think the way he's thinking. He's thinking like an entrepreneur, so obviously he has full belief, and obviously he's going to make bold statements, because that's what visionaries do. But that doesn't mean they're always 100% right. There's a survivorship bias with that as well.
Well, it's extreme optimism, right? And with a topic like this, that can that can cause a lot of I guess shake in people, right? Because if you're extremely optimistic in, let's say, creating like gas money, if we're extremely optimistic in that, somebody can, there's not some craziness going on in their head, oh, this is going to change, so many things. It's going to be a helpful thing that we can use and benefit ourselves and then benefit our community. But with AI, I mean, it can do a lot of different things, and it hasn't happened before. There's already been services, like gas money. There's been handymans and stuff like that, but there's never really ever been, something that can be smarter than a human. So when you're extremely optimistic about something like that, I'm sure it can be kind of scary. Have you ever had conversations with people either joining Gain or outside of Gain that you see that a lot?
What do you mean by that? This extreme optimism AI?
Well, no, just, the narrative where if you're listening to Sam Altman and all you hear is, we're going to do this and it's going to be this big, it's going to change the economy, it's going to, impact a lot of jobs. And, he bounces around like, it's not going to take people's jobs, it's going to make life better. So it's like all that different stuff. If you hear that, I'm sure that can scare a lot of people.
Yeah, most people are scared. A lot are bought in. A lot are just, he said this, that means it's happening because he has multiple $1 billion in the bank. And that's not a good way to take anyone's opinion. You should take their opinion for their opinion and not their success. Although, obviously, you have to have a certain weight on it. You'd weigh their opinion more than mine because they're working with it. But it should never be absolute. You should never just listen to one person, especially when their ideas literally change the entire world and change the way humans interact and make something smarter than humans. And that obviously stokes a lot of fear. And that's one of the big things I think you were kind of getting at as well. The fear surrounding it is definitely a big factor. People are like very scared of death. That's the biggest fear. I'm sure if you polled 100 Americans or 100 anywhere, that's everyone's biggest fear. When it really think down the root of it, heights is just a fear of death. So when you're bringing in this idea that, oh, in a few years we're going to have a machine with no real emotions that's smarter than us and has the capabilities to kill us, you're either going to fight really hard against it or you're going to completely submit to it the same way people do with religion. And with I don't know how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole with religion falling.
No, I get that. Yeah, for sure.
Is taking a big one. And in the tech community, people literally refer to AI as, oh, it's going to be the God. It's going to be God, which is very surprising because they're the same people that 10, 20 years ago in Silicon Valley were really like almost an atheist, super just tech driven. And now they're submitting to the digital God. So it's interesting how no matter what happens, everyone wants to submit to something. It is definitely interesting, but that's almost an entirely different conversation.
Right.
No, it gets crazy too, because with AI, it's essentially just millions and millions of rows of compiled data where it's learning from each decision that's made. Correct? In a simple sense, it's just learn through data over time.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's learning trends in data and understanding. Do you want like a almost wrong definition? I was doing an event at the college a lot today. I was giving a training to a bunch of professors and administrators, and the definition I gave it, and I always say it's so simple, it's pretty much wrong. But it's so simple. So the first thing they do, again, almost wrong how simple it is, but they look at everything pretty much ever written, books, journals, websites, tweets, magazines, maybe not tweets, but articles, threads, Twitter, like Reddit. And then they look where the words are being used. So for example, the word but and however would be kind of fairly similar because they're used in the same context, like a transition word that alternates the subject. And then good and bad would obviously be almost opposite. So that's called like a vector database is where they store that in, and they have a mapping of all the words. And again, much more complex, but that's pretty much it. They're mapping where words are used. And then from there, you ask it a question. For example, write my Spanish paper tonight, or let's say history. Let's write my history paper tonight. So then it looks up all of its sources and it says what would be the most likely best response. So it has, I don't know how deep I want to get, but it has little bits of data, which are just individual characters and the letters that make up the words. And it says what combination of these words and letters is most statistically likely to be a good response. And the reason it has errors and hallucinates is because it doesn't know. It has to make statistical inferences and extrapolations. And a lot of the time that's wrong. So it's never lying to you the way we lie to people. it's lying to you the way it doesn't know, and it's making its best guess. Because even if it knows something very, very well, it's still a 99.999% guess. So we never see an error. But if it's something it's more 50-50, it's not sure, you get a very unique problem it's never seen before. It still guesses, and the guess is wrong, and that's why we notice it. But it's always just making next best word predictor, and in doing so, it has some reasoning ability at this point. There's reasoning in the way it predicts the next word. So I'm not saying it's just like the thing on your phone. That it's much more complex than that, and people try and simplify it that deep. I'm not going to do that, but at the end of the day, it's the statistically most likely good output is really the best way to think about it. And when you start thinking about that, you start to explain that's why it's lying, that's why it's making errors, that's why it's not reliable yet, to a certain margin for error. That's just been the biggest thing when you're really thinking about it. It's just math and computers and the data going back and forth and just trying to find the best solution. But it's not at this point like a god or anything. Maybe it'll get there when it gets really good at predicting. That's the biggest thing. That's like how I think it's the most easily digestible way. I don't know, was that digestible?
Yeah. I mean, that was honestly, I've never actually heard it explained down, even like simplified like that. So that's very helpful, honestly, because it just seems like, from like me, I'm going on it, trying to help out with either marketing, advice or these different business strategies. Hey, see what you can come up with, right? And I'm like, how the hell is it coming up with this? But that makes sense when it's kind of just breaking everything down out of all the different inputs that it has, which is how many is it? Billions, trillions? Like, what is it going on? The data points.
I think it's 1.4 trillion parameters on GPT-4.
Wow.
1.4 trillion. That's like the rumor. They don't release anything because they don't tell anything, but there's certain leaks. I think NVIDIA, who sold on the chip, said it's that. But I mean, it's the best. If something is online, you could assume that it's been trained off of that. So there's like a Reddit, but you assume it just combed it and it's Reddit. They do massive web scraping. They just go on every website and they just read and compile. So you could assume it's all the data on the web, on the internet, and it's probably not all of it, but it's
a lot of it.
About it. If something's on the web, you just assume it's Reddit and trained its model off that.
And with that too, it seems like, and after this, we can get a little more into like starting out the club and stuff.
Yeah,
but
sure.
One question I was thinking about too is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like the first mainstream iteration of AI was really a form of like Siri and whatever the Android assistant is. Is that correct in terms of like the public widely using it? Because it wasn't necessarily fully AI, but it was in a way a searcher.
Yeah, I think I don't know how Siri works. I think that might just be like searching on the phone. I'm not sure if that's AI.
Yeah.
I would say AI is way more than just chatbots. So it's a lot of different things. So it's a branch of mathematics and computational mathematics. So LLMs, large language models, are what ChatGPT are. That's where they're using the data is the words and the way they map the words and the position of the words in the vector database. That is, and they do a bunch of other stuff. But that's an LLM. There's also, if you watch NFL football on Sundays and they have that AWS StatCast, the catch probability, that's AI. They're just predicting based off all of the plays what the probability he catches that ball given all the inputs. That's just a model. I mean, most of Wall Street predictive modeling, it's been going on for years, and that's why a lot of the big thing that I say a lot, it's not new at all. It's been going on since the 1950s or where they started. It's just math and computers coming together. So it's not, obviously ChatGPT is the big, GPT-3 I think last year was one of the breakthrough moments. But it's been around in a lot of different things, and you don't really even realize it. The way Amazon gives you your package, the way they route it, that's all AI, machine learning to figure out the best route.
Yeah, I'm sure like sports betting too. That's like probably a great example.
Yeah. I mean, all the lines,
there's no way.
all the lines are just modeling.
Yeah, which is crazy. And I don't know, just talking about AI too, like getting into it a little more, like how you started out. So you're in MIS major, correct?
Yeah, management information systems. It's the easiest way to describe it. It's a systems analysis, or just business and tech. It's probably the best, and also systems analysis. So the system of how you build a business process, that's a big part of it too. But business tech and business processes, I say.
So how much of an influence did that have on wanting to start the game club, or even just learning about AI in general?
Oh, huge. Yeah, it definitely. And there's so much of a data science aspect to that major. So that's how I originally got into it. In high school, I was big into Moneyball, and that was just, simple statistics that you could do on a calculator. But that's really what got my interest in data. So I majored in MIS because it's the closest they have to a data science degree for undergraduate without having to go to the College of Engineering, which I didn't want to be an engineering major and work like 50 hours a week as a student just on classes. So that was a big input, just understanding how things work, understanding how businesses run, how technology is implemented into a business process. That's really the biggest part of it, the MIS major. So then that put me in a great position through classes to then say, how are we going to implement AI? We used to do analytics, which maybe it's still analytics, but we used to do data analytics, and that was our big breakthrough about 20 or 30 years ago. And it seems like the next breakthrough is AI, and you need to understand not just how the computer works, but how the entire system of a business works. So that really set me up well. And then if we want to go even a little further, what kind of really made me want to start it is I actually have a part-time job at FSU. So I work at a political research center. It's a political think tank, if you will. So 30 researchers, all undergraduates, some graduate students, but we do public policy research. So I started that fall of my junior year, so almost 2 years ago now. And I was a data analytics intern. So my boss had me do a bunch of data visualizations and a little bit of analysis and a couple of statistical tests. And I was on the K through 12 education system. I did a good enough job that I got promoted to manager. So now as a 20-year-old, I had to recruit a team from almost scratch. So I had to recruit, I had to interview, I had to hire people. So that was a great leadership experience. That really taught me a lot about how to lead and how to start something, because it was already there, but it was pretty much just more or less me and like maybe another kid or two that wasn't so into it. So it was there before, and then I came in kind of a lull period of it where nothing was really happening on that team. And then I like rebuilt the team back up. So I modernized a lot of the tools. We used to use like Excel, and now we're using like Python and SQL. And I pitched a project, and that got accepted. So I've been leading that almost like an IT project for create a database, and we make all data visualizations and do research. I'm actually going to Vegas with that in a couple weeks too. I did a research project on like affordable housing solutions in Tampa. But yeah, I mean, that leadership experience was probably even just as big or almost as big as the MIS, just being in, like going into a room every week. And I had like 3 or 4 people that would be like, all right, what are we going to do? I had to lead them on this big tech project that I started. So that was just such a great experience. And I got the confidence through that to really step up and then say, well, I'm going to try and teach people AI as well, which is a little bit ambitious, but I guess you have to be if you want to be successful.
Did you find any? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying, because you also mentioned Python and different additions to that whole leadership position. So you obviously know some coding. I mean, we've had conversations obviously off camera and stuff like that. So did all of that compounded kind of turn into the interest? Okay, now I have this leadership know-how. I have coding experience. I've went down the rabbit holes of AI and what that's potentially turning into. I've worked this job and figured out what it could benefit, certain things in this position. Did all of that compound into then saying, okay, I'm going to start? Is it the first FSU AI club?
Yeah, it's I'm more or less like the informal student leader on it. So every Monday, I've known the last couple of Mondays, so I'm not sure on the day, but every Monday we have faculty meetings. I'm the only student there, and I'm doing a presentation in a couple of weeks about my club and what they did. They have some faculty's a little bit like scattered on it, so they're trying to get a lot of the faculty members together to like make a plan. I've been involved in meetings, so I'm like the informal kind of student leader. But yeah, I mean, no one else is really doing any sort of an AI initiative. I was the first and the only one so far. So I mean, I'm leaving this year, so hopefully GAIN continues to be the main thing because we have a head start on everyone else. But I mean, hopefully it'll continue to grow after I leave.
Did you find any? I was going to say, did you find any friction in starting that? Because a lot of college professors are, obviously skeptical of AI with the cheating and everything.
Yeah.
Like so new to them, and kind of they had the perceptions in their head that, oh, this is just going to be a club for students to figure out how to cheat, or did they have a better idea once you explained it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd say any friction I had was mainly like administration, and not because they were against me, but because there's like a lot of paperwork you have to fill out to start a school club. Um, it's like a lot. So that was the biggest thing, was like, can I even be like a registered school club? So I work at a small political think tank. There's a lot of, it's like a think tank. So a lot of ideas are going around. So my boss is super lenient. I have almost full control of the team. So then for the first time, I was like, oh, I have to deal with like administrative nonsense. So that was its own like journey there, I guess. That was a lot of fun. It wasn't, but it was. As far as talking to professors and professionals, so the first thing I did was just talk to people. That was the only thing I did with Game. Was I'm going to talk to everybody that'll listen to me. So I talked to professors. Half of them said, I have no idea what you're talking about, but maybe talk to this person. And I was like, great. I talked to that person. Half of those people were like, give me something. The other half would be, I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe talk to this person. So I kind of just formed a chain of all professors at FSU, and then I got a cold emailing some professionals, and a few of them found it interesting, mostly ignores, but a few people would message me back on like LinkedIn, and I got some connections through there. And the people that liked it were really supportive. No one was like, don't do this. Everyone has, even the people that had no idea, they had the aspect of like, yeah, that's really important. I don't know, but it's really important. Like, keep going. No one told me don't start this club. And even I work like somewhat closely with the associate provost, the second in command of the second in command at FSU. I don't really work with him, but he's like leading that faculty initiative I said. So he knows we've had a bunch of conversations, and he said academic integrity is the wrong AI we should be focusing on. So he's just like, I just want to know how kids are using it. So I'm like, well, I'll tell you about my workshops, what my students say, and I kind of feed them some information. But they're fairly open-minded, actually. So that's been a really pleasant surprise. No one's really too much accused me of making a cult of cheaters, which I was a little bit worried about at first, but it's been pretty good for the most part. Everyone's been super welcoming, and even if they don't know something, they're just like sending me off to the next person. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, because it's almost similar to like an entrepreneur. I mean, when you're, let's say, some of the people that we've talked to that have had, either one investment round or multiple investment rounds, it's a lot of the cold, reaching out about your idea or your business, and this is what it's all about. This can, make you money and all this stuff. But with you, it's slightly different. It can bring, more knowledge to the student base and all that stuff. But where's that drive from for you to keep going? There's not a lot of students like that, or not a lot of people our age that would try to start something, first of all, brand new, and, getting into a new space like this. Well, not new. It's been going on for a while, like you were saying, but newish in the world. Where's that drive coming from? Like, why did you keep going?
Yeah, I'd probably think about that one a little bit.
Because it's awesome. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm interested in making things better for the most part. I know that's like a cop-out answer, but I just felt I was the person to kind of steward it in and to do it. And it's been exciting, and I get to work in a bunch of different career fields. I mean, I'm not a marketing major, but I work with marketing. I do projects with marketing. I'm definitely not a law major. I'm definitely not a lawyer. But this afternoon, I gave a presentation to lawyers about how they could use it in their legal field. So just taking on different challenges has been super exciting. And I think I have a weird view on money. I think a lot of people have this. Some people have this view where it's just pretty much a collection of human labor. It's not like what a lot of people think it is. It's almost just incentive to get things done. So I'm not too drawn by money. I've actually lost money running this club. I bought pizza for events, and then we're having a competition. I'm spending $500 out of pocket for the prize money. I'm just passionate about it. I just want to put good things in the world. I think good things will come back. I know that's like a cop-out answer, but that's kind of what it just comes down to.
You said passion. I
have a passion for it, for sure.
When somebody's passionate about something, it's hard to stop them. And this is, just going through like the Instagram today, because I didn't know a whole lot about Gain. I know we talked about it a little bit when I was down there. That was quite a while ago now, but just going through, like, you guys have quite a few followers, and this, like you were saying, it's the first AI club at FSU, huge university. I think there's no way in hell it's going to go away after you go off. It's probably only going to continue to grow as the industry also grows. It's just really interesting in my mind seeing, people like you and other people that we've talked to that have a passion to keep going, even when you're in a situation where, you send out 100 emails, you get 20 responses, those 20 responses go down to 5 people that you actually talk to. And then you have a couple more people that actually, show up and put on a presentation for the club. Mm-hmm. So that can be draining for a lot of people.
I've been burned out a couple times doing it for sure.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, and like you mentioned at the beginning too, like you're helping educate kids about AI, because I didn't even really know that much, and then went to the first couple meetings, and I mean, like the first one, it was kind of like the intro, just talking about, I mean, you had like computer science people, marketing people, business people, a lot of people, like all around the spectrum, and that's what I've liked about what Dean's doing at FSU, is it's not just centralized for people that are specifically interested in data analytics or computer science. You're trying to expand that spectrum, and I'm not sure if you've like looked into other schools, but are there any other colleges that are doing this right now with like AI clubs, or
I'm not sure about AI clubs. I know UF is like obviously our big rival at FSU. So in 2020, coincidentally, they got a $60 million investment from NVIDIA to build a supercomputer to build their own AI models. They just kind of it worked out for them. I don't think anyone knew it was going to grow this quickly to what it is now. But they have a supercomputer. They have like a whole AI department with faculty running it. So I saw that, and that was one of the big things where I was like, FSU should have something like that. I obviously don't have $60 million to donate. So maybe we're not like building the models. I mean, we build small models on a couple of our workshops. We get people fine tuning, and we do a couple machine learning small models. But for the most part, we focus on some development, but a lot of application, because that's what everyone's going to really be focusing on. There's only a handful of people that can really build large models that are smarter or smarter than humans. So the biggest thing was, how can we get people to just interact with this and apply it to the things they learn in class and be more hands-on with it, and less just theoretical textbook learning and more. That's something I'm passionate about as well, is learning hands-on. Most of my education has actually been through either DMC, my research center, or through GAIN, because I just have to. I don't have an option. If I want to finish my project, I have to learn new things. I'm not, if I wait in class, I'll be a master's student before I figure out a problem I needed a year and a half ago. So definitely just teaching myself a lot of things has also been a great experience. But yeah, I mean, that's really just, I just had a passion for it. I really wanted people to learn these things. And I treat it like a startup. Like my DMC, my research center, is slightly more corporate because I have a boss. I actually have a boss and then a boss above that, like the director and then the assistant director. So, and there's like a whole editorial, and there's a bunch of other researchers. So that's been more of a corporate, and it's a small corporate. So I've had that experience being a manager there, but I've treated GAIN like a startup. I mean, my goal is not to be profitable. My goal is to have as many people come out as possible. That's my profit, is students learning, which is rewarding and also not as rewarding as money, but also slightly less stress. So there's like a give and take. But yeah, what you said about being canvas, that's one of my favorite things too, but it also makes it a pain to run because you don't really have a consistent base, because like the person that shows up at the coding event usually isn't going to show up at the marketing event, and they're definitely not going to show up at the law event, and they're probably not going to show up at the writing event. So being all across campus has been great. It's been awesome to be flexible, but that's the biggest thing, is like every week it's pretty much like starting a new club, because I have to reach out to new students. We do every other week, so it's like every other week we have to build a workshop and reach out. So it's been a lot of outreach. So that's been tough. But I mean, yeah, like you said, I've just been really passionate about it. It's something I'm really genuinely gets me up in the morning. So hopefully I'm making a difference. I don't know really if I am or not, considering we only done maybe 10 or 15 events, but hopefully maybe down the line it'll grow bigger. And yeah, it's just nothing else I'd rather really be doing right now.
Yeah. How do you keep that organized?
I mean, I got a Google Drive, but I do sprints. If you guys are into project management, I started doing them for my research center. So I'll just be like, 1 week I'm doing this coding event, and I'll just do a sprint, and I'll get the basis. I'll learn about what we're gonna do, and it's more of like the marketing. I don't know anything about marketing, but I meet with the marketing club. I talk to them. I learn from them. I'll spend like 2 or 3 days just like all day doing that, focused in, learn about marketing, how AI is being applied for professionals, how I can do it, and then not only how I could apply AI to marketing, but how I could apply AI to marketing in an hour, because that's really all the time you have with a student. So I'll go through all of that. I'll have like a rough draft, and I go one at a time usually, and then I'll meet back with the club. We'll kind of like say, is this good enough? We'll fine tune it because they know more about the industry than I do. I'll take their advice, make a few changes, and usually it's ready to go. And then it's just outreach. It's a lot easier when we pair with the club because I don't really have to do the outreach as much because I'm just appealing to their students. But yeah, just honestly like 2 or 3 days grind at a time. Take a break, do either schoolwork or my research center work. And then if I have some free time, I'll get ahead and I'll do like a workshop a month away, and I'll start on that and at least get a base for it. So then when it comes to building it, but yeah, just honestly like sessions, just grinding it out one at a time, keeping organized notes, keeping folders. I have a Google Drive and then also my laptop folders. So just saving files. I usually just have a Google Doc, and I'll just compile like 2 pages of notes about just things. And then the next few pages, I'll start to be like outlining projects and presentations.
And you have a management team too that helps you out, right? With Gain, do you loop them in or have them collaborate, or has it mostly just been like a large effort on your part to get everything planned?
Yeah, I have a social media person that's great. Like she's the best. She's in Europe this semester, which has been a little tough, but she's still getting like really good graphics out. She was really great when she was here though, because she was able to help me with a lot of the outreach.
Mm-hmm.
This semester, she's been making the marketing stuff really good. But for the most part, I've tried looping people in on some of the workshops. I just have a certain like quality control as maybe I don't think I'm a control freak, but I just like want it to be very high quality. And then something I've noticed with especially running my research center is a lot of the time if I delegate something to someone and it's not high enough quality, I end up having to review the whole thing. So mainly this semester, it's been just me because it ends up saving time, because then it's like I give them a week, and then if I don't like it enough, then I have to go back and do the whole thing over again. But now we're a week behind, so I've just like manned up and be like, I'm just gonna grind it out, which isn't the most sustainable way to do it. But like I said, I'm leaving. I did my last big workshop last week, and now it's just kind of speaker events and our competition. So I'm mainly through the thick of it, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm a control freak. Maybe I just have like a certain quality that I want to see them at.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, obviously you had the passion, or you still have the passion. You had the passion to start this thing. I mean, the passion's not going to go away, especially because you started it and you were like, we're going to do it, the best we can. And if it's not the best up to your standard, then you want to, make sure if you put something out there that it's going to be the best.
I'll put one bad thing out and you get that reputation. I'm sure you guys know the same thing with your app. It's just like everything like if you have one stinker, you lose credibility. So that's been the biggest thing, is like everything's been better than the last one. I think we've done a pretty good job of it. I think everyone I've been like, that was better than the last one. I look back at the first one and that wasn't very good, but then the second one was really good. And I feel like from there, the quality's been going up every time. So that's been really nice to see. The more I get more expertise on getting a groove. And now I keep all my slides, I keep all my notes. So the next team that takes over, they'll understand like my disorganized thought process, but at least it's all written down for them to kind of understand what I'm looking for and what they should be doing the next year and beyond. So hopefully that'll be like a benchmark.
Yeah, documenting's great, especially if you're going to be handing it off and wanting to keep the club growing, because I could definitely see it. I don't know how the clubs work, like inter-university wide, like if Gain would like partner with another college, they'd start their own version of Gain. But it'd be cool to start. I mean, I'm having that thought because with gas money, that's one of our goals, is going nationwide with it. And it is almost like a form of entrepreneurship. Like you mentioned, you're leading a team of young adults who are all passionate about a certain subject, putting on events. And with that, one of the things that we've loved with gas money and just the whole entrepreneur space is networking with people. And your experience specifically for finding these expert guests to come on. I mean, you've had a lot of very intelligent people come on and speak about AI. How do you reach out to them and how do you get them interested in speaking?
Well, I was lucky enough that the guy from IBM, the AI engineer, he actually had my job when he was a master's student here. So I actually met him through my research center. So that was actually really helpful. Everyone else, I just cold email people, LinkedIn too. And I give them a nice connect request and I tell them, hi, my name's Ethan. I run an AI initiative on campus, blah, 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 blah. I'll go on their website sometimes. They have certain offices you can reach out to. And like you said, I mean, most of the times people don't respond. I'm guilty of it too. Like I had a student, I'm leaving my research center obviously this year because I'm graduating. I had a student reach out to me that was like asking more for more info about about the team and how he can get involved. And I was I was like really busy and stressed one day, so I was like, I'm not dealing with this right now. And it's the next manager's problem. So I'm guilty of it too. I don't have any like ill feelings.
We all are. We all are, man.
For the people that don't answer me. But I mean, it's just finding good people. And the second you get on a call, the KPMG event, I met with them last Wednesday. I met them before, but we're like, all right, this last Wednesday, so 6 days ago, we're like, all right, we're gonna sit down and do a planning of this event. So I talked to her and we're just going back and forth for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And then we hit like 30. And like we're talking about career, we're talking about AI, we're talking about business, we're talking about KPMG, we're talking about like my spring break because she was just like asking about my life as well. So we had really a good conversation. And she was like, all right. She gets her phone out. She texts the partner at her firm in Tallahassee because she's based out of Tallahassee. And then she's like, oh, this guy's visiting next week from the Austin office. Text him, hey, you want to do the speaker event? Oh, you're free next Wednesday. She's like, you want to do it next Wednesday in like a week? So I was like, yeah, sure. If you can get 3 KPMG seniors and like one of them runs the AI mission in Houston, or Austin, I'm sorry. And I'm like, if you could bring him out. And just because she liked me, she's like, I don't do this for anyone else. I'm like, I know, thank you so much. I was like so thankful, but she just kind of like the conversation we're having and the mission of the club, and she believed in it. And the biggest problem is FSU requires 10 days like warning on booking rooms. So I'm both reaching out to everyone. Can I please book a room? It's last minute. There's this guy flying in from Austin who runs the KPMG initiative. And he's like, they want to network with students. And I'm like laying all the garbage on and trying to get a room. And then on Monday morning at 9 a.m., yesterday morning, they're like, all right, you can have room 103 in the College of Business. So I had a flyer ready to go. I changed out room TBD to room 103, posted it on social, started emailing people, come out at this, blah, blah, blah. So hopefully we'll have a good showing for that. But like 2 days notice, pretty much, I've had to promote that event. And it's tomorrow night now. So, I mean, hopefully KPMG is a big enough event, but like just the networking, if someone understands your vision, they'll so willing to help you out. Like, I don't think if I cold emailed her, be like, hey, can you come out in 6 days? She'd be like, yeah, sure. But once you get on the phone and you talk to her, and she could tell I was passionate about my mission, about what we're doing. And then she was like, I'm looking for students as well. There's a certain mutual beneficial relationship there. She's like, I want to meet some students that are interested in this stuff as well, because we're going to be hiring interns next year. We want them to be more tech driven and more versed in AI because they work with the government in Tallahassee a lot. And the government is, I was probably not the most technically inclined. They're like, well, we want more AI stuff going on. So they're like, all right, we got to find AI people now. So they're like, all right, well, it works for both of us. And I was like, all right, 7 days to promote this event. Probably less, but really 3 after we booked all the rooms and everything. But yeah, I mean, just the power of networking, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it can show what a conversation can turn into. I mean, I'm sure you've met a lot of kids. I say kids, but different college students that either they, you get to know them a little bit, and then they have the passions about certain things, and then they open up a little bit, and then there's a good conversation, whatever. You've always been, I mean, ever since I met you, you've always definitely been a great conversationalist, and you're open and all that stuff. But has this, the different speaking events, and have you done any of that before to be able to know what, how to converse or how to say certain things or how to captivate the people that are there? How much has that taught you? I'm sure a lot.
Yeah, this front and gain has been unbelievable for that. So I remember when I was an intern at my research center a little under 2 years ago now, at the end of my one semester as an intern, I had to give a speech on my presentation, and it was like a 1-page write-up, a couple graphs about K through 12 and about how underfunded districts aren't doing as good as funded districts, which seems obvious, but I was just analyzing the extent to which they don't do well. And I remember going up there and I was like, not at all good. I was not at all a good speaker. I feel like I'm pretty good at having conversations, but I got up in public and I was like, I really got to get better at this. So then managing the team my junior year of spring was great because I'd have to speak in front of 5 people and they'd be looking up to me and they'd be like, what's going on. So that helped my communication a lot. And then, I mean, to start fall of this year, when I started GAIN, I'd be up in front of 500 students in HCB 01, which is the huge classroom building. That's literally what it stands for. And I'd be in front of a large lecture hall, 500 students, and half of them are on their phones or whatever, but there'd be like a couple of students that would get up and pitch their club. So that was big. And I'm like, once I talk in front of 500 people, and once I talk in then a few 100-person classrooms, and then some 80, and then some 30, some smaller ones, and then some of the 30 that there's really only like 15 people there because we're a few weeks into the semester now and people don't go to class as much as the first week. So then once I started doing that, I was like, okay, first GAIN meeting. I remember I met with Rob actually, and we rehearsed. We met up with one of our other friends, and I had my presentation. It was like 20 minutes or something, talking about AI, the club, what we're trying to do, our mission. And I was getting better. And then that was actually, you said it was a good one. Maybe he was trying to not hurt my feelings
a little bit.
Yeah, he's trying to just get me going, get me confident. That's the biggest thing. But I just realized, like, one, confidence, two, you just almost get certain like numb. At one point, you're like, it's just a talk. And that makes it really, really easy to just be up there and be like, hey, just talk to like I'm talking to you. Sometimes when I'm in the right mood, I'm able to do it. Sometimes I still like talk a little quick because I'm like, oh, I don't want to waste too much time. These people, I get stuck doing like before class a lot of the time. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to interrupt the professor. So then I kind of run on and talk a little bit much. But once I'm in the meetings, I'm usually up there, and I don't think I'm the funniest guy in the world, but I can make a joke or two, and I get a couple of laughs, and let's make sure they're there. Not even to get laughs, just to be like, are they still listening to me? So I'll make like a moderately funny joke, and then I'll get giggles, and I'm like, all right, they're still listening to me, so that's good. But there's like the little things that you learn when you're up there, because the worst thing, I mean, you're a student, obviously, you sit up there and you tune out the professor and you're on your laptop. It's a little bit better with clubs because they're voluntarily. But like just even the little things, obviously speaking, but making sure the audience is engaged, making sure they're still having a good time, making sure they want to come back and they want to listen to you. That's definitely been a big thing. On top of, obviously, I've just gotten so much better at talking in front of a room. And the only way to really get better is by doing it. I've taken public speaking courses, and I know you have too.
Oh, yeah.
At FSU, that didn't teach me a thing. You're sitting in front of a camera the same way I'm sitting in front of camera here. That doesn't make me any better of a speaker.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to, just applying your skills in the real world. And sometimes, I've had bad talks. I've had classrooms where I've run on and I go too quick and I'm like, nobody heard me. No one's paying attention, but you just got to do it. You just got to go for it.
Yeah. I think I heard it was an interview with Tony Robbins or some speaker. I think it was Tony Robbins actually. And somebody asked him, because he speaks in front of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Tony Robbins, but he speaks in front of a shitload of people all the time. But he said, the nerves at the beginning never go away. It's just you hit, once you start talking, you hit this, like you're going. And you're just, like you said, kind of like a numbing, but, more comfortable feel. And you become like, okay, I know what I'm talking about kind of thing. Whereas when you first started, I'm sure, and us are the same, even with this podcast, we were like, at the beginning, we're trying to race through, ask just a bunch of questions. Oh, wait, we don't want it to be an interview. We want to have a conversation. Like, what are we doing? And then it just gets to a point like, okay, slow it down. And I know what I'm talking about. So let them hear it kind of thing. And I'm sure it's gotten to that. You said there's been 15 events so far.
Ballpark, maybe 10 or 15. I'd probably get.
That's pretty quick. I mean, to be able to feel that. But I mean, after the first couple, right? Do you still have the nerves when you're walking up there at first?
Yeah, I do a lot of speaking in front of classrooms. Most of the times, everyone's sitting down, they're settling in, and maybe I'm a little nervous, but I always do like, you guys ready? You guys ready to start? Like, how you guys doing? Like something like that. And once they're like, I see a few of them look at me. That's always a big thing. Like eye contact, super. It actually like calms me at least. I'm not the kind of guy that's like supposed to look in the back of the room. Yeah, eye contact's big for me. It actually calms me down. It makes me feel like I'm talking to a person or a friend. And that's a big help as well. And I know a lot of people aren't actually like that. They like staring at the wall and just reciting. But I try and make it like a conversation. So I always say, like, if you have any questions, just cut me off. Like, it's fine. I try and make them pretty relaxed and sometimes maybe too relaxed. But that's how I feel like how it should be when you're learning. It should be a conversation. It shouldn't be like, I'm going to lecture you. I try to avoid lectures, although you have to give them to some extent. If I'm breaking down a concept, I have to tell you. and then I'll tell you briefly, and then I'll have you do it, but I have to tell you at some point. But even then, I'm like, people ask a question, I'm like, great question. I'd say most of my speaking has actually been in just like in front of classrooms. Like, hey, we have this event coming up. Here's what we're doing. We have this. Follow us on Instagram, blah, 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 blah. And that's where I'm usually the worst, actually. I feel like once I'm in my meeting, I'm prepared. That's the biggest thing is preparation. Is once you're prepared, you have nothing to be nervous about.
Yeah.
You're just comfortable. You know what you're doing. It's not like there's like what's it called? Like luck is when opportunity means preparation or something like that. So like if all my events are good, it's not luck. It's because I'm prepared and I had an opportunity that no one else is doing what I'm doing, and I know a lot. No one else has the kind of expertise in all these different fields as I do. So I'm like, I'm just ready to go. I've done my preparation, and then I'm just talking the same way I'm talking to you guys, and that's been all right for me. I think I'm decent. Obviously, I need to get a lot better at public speaking. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but as far as where I was a year ago, it's crazy how night and day just by gaining that experience.
Yeah, it's all progress and it's practice too. Like that's a big thing with the podcast we love is every time we do it, it just teaches us how to have conversations. And the biggest thing I've learned is just like actively listening to what people are saying and hearing it. Because there's a lot of times where, like you said, you'll be sitting in class, the professor's talking, you zone out, and then they ask you a question like, oh, I wasn't paying attention. But when you're having a conversation, if you're like actually listening to what people are saying, be able to pick off what they say and kind of continue the conversation from there, that helps a lot. And I guess just one more point about the speaking too, like one thing I struggled with at first is like the cold start when you first start talking. And it's always tough in the beginning because like your throat's dry, you're breathing heavier, like trying to make sure you don't stumble your words. And one thing I found that's helped me a lot, especially with the podcast, is like just having a conversation with somebody right before, or even if there's nobody around, just like talking to the wall, or like at least getting your voice practice. Because you know, like when you do a school presentation or like with Gas Money, when we've done pitches, you always feel so pumped up after. You're like, oh yeah, that went great. Like I want to keep talking in front of people, or at least that's how I feel. And it's funny because at the beginning you're always nervous. So if you have like some way to warm up, or whether it's conversation, like you pitching to me with Ethan, the other Ethan Hernandez, like anything like that can kind of help stimulate it.
I actually a really good story about that. So I was doing a talk. We had like a machine learning workshop. We're having kids like build a quick machine learning model. So I was in my supply chain class, and we're like, yeah, it's like intro to overview of machine learning. So we don't actually do any work. We're mainly just like being quizzed on the subjects, and like they're catching up us to speed on like how people are using different techniques in the supply chain. So I go up there and I always ask the professor first, and I'm like, hey, can I go in front of speak? Or even if I email them beforehand, I'm like, hey, how's it going? I always talk to the professor first, and that's like almost I didn't even realize. That's always my best ones, or I'm talking to the professor first. And the other day I was giving him the pitch, and he's like, you got something in your hair. And I thought he was saying my hair was messed up. So I'm like trying to like shape my hair a little bit. I'm like, oh God, is it bad? Because I have curly hair. I know it can get like knotty and bad really quickly. And he reaches over and he like almost like picks something out of my hair. It's a piece of pollen. So he gets a piece of pollen out of my hair. And I'm like, oh, we have big moss trees at Florida State because we have we're in Panhandle, so we have these beautiful moss trees, and the pollen's falling right now. It's that time of year in the spring. So I'm like, oh my God, everywhere. I was on Landis Green the other day, and I got up and I was laying on the grass, and I got up and my back was covered and all with soap. He's like, yeah, I know, my car's been getting all hit with all the pollen. My car's green. I got to wash it. I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. He's like, you want to go? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Then I went and I gave like a really good talk, and usually the only bad talks I really give, I don't know, bad talks I give, maybe I give a lot of bad talks, I don't realize, but the only bad talks I really give are when I'm up there and I'm like cold and I'm like, hey guys, my name's Ethan, I'm president. And GAIN has a long name. It's Group for Artificial Intelligence Navigation. So like I got to introduce that, and then I'm like, or like GAIN, it's like this AI thing, and my throat seizes up. But like you said, I talked to the professor and I stood up there and it was like really good. I didn't even realize that's what it is, but that's actually like a really great piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, that's like in sales too. I'm doing a bunch of sales classes. Like that's the whole point of rapport. Like when you go into a sales meeting, you don't want to just get right to it. Like warm the person up a little bit. And kind of the same thing. Like you're just getting used to talking. So it's definitely interesting, man. It's like a lot of psychology, and I think a part of it, like you said earlier, is confidence too. Because then you're like, well, I didn't stutter when I was talking to this guy, so should be able to do good when I'm talking to the class. But,
yeah, definitely. And I feel like, I mean, with Rob too, I mean, you've done a couple of the pitches at FSU, obviously, and absolutely, kill them. But I like Ethan was saying, that was a great piece of advice, because I didn't even realize that you like, even if you don't have anybody to talk to, it might sound weird, but just, mumble something off in the other room, go to the bathroom real quick, look at yourself in the mirror. It's kind of weird, but it'll work. It gets you kind of warmed up. But yeah, that's huge. And even so, with all like the speaking stuff, and then we talked about you having a conversation. So it was over the phone. And then that one lady was, getting a couple of our other people that were coming into town and all that stuff. Just to get to that point in a conversation, has that, like, what has taught you with conversation skills? Is it all of that combined, or is it anything else in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just talking. Like, I've done enough of these conversations with professors. When I was starting it up, I was meeting like a bunch of people a week, and I'd be on Zoom. And it was on Zoom, so it was a little better than being on the phone, like you can see their face. But I start off like the best way I do it is I start off just slow and humble. That's what I always try and do. So I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? Because I'm in New York, where I talk fast sometimes. That's how I always grew up, and my speech is definitely slowed down as I've gotten to FSU for a lot of different reasons, but ultimately because I've learned it's a better way to start a conversation with a stranger. And it's like, if I'm talking to my mom, my dad, we're going to run off and go a million miles an hour. But for me, it's especially difficult to slow down. So I'm like, just talk slow. Like, hey, how's it going? How's your day been? Oh, yeah. And I think the intro to that conversation with KPMG was spring break. Like, that's how I started the conversation off, because she was a really cool lady. It's like, yeah, I'm dad with my kids now, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then I ask questions is a big thing. One of the big things I do is like ask a question, they'll give an answer, like a little anecdote to relate, but like slowly, and then just like ask another question. And I had a job interview, and it might be the job I end up taking if I get offered. I mean, we'll see. But I did like shadowing for half an hour with this guy, and it's mortgage processing. So it's a lot of documentation, like getting all the documents together and analyzing them and making sure all the rates and everything are right. That's for the first couple of years. And after that, once you like understand how the mortgage process works, and you could do some of the more data and analysis stuff. But the biggest thing is I sat down, she's like, you have any questions? And I was like, yeah. So I talked to her about Gain, about DMC, and about a lot of the work I do. So I was like, yeah, I mean, just from my perspective, like, why are you guys not looking to automate more of your processes? Then she talked for like 5 minutes. Well, we want to. I came here 7 years ago. We're doing it by paper, and then it's gotten a lot better. And that one, she's like, now like, this guy's not even just like interviewing, he's like looking for solutions right away, which I think was good. And I mean, we'll see if I get an offer. I hope I do. I can't be too cocky, but I felt like I was really good in it, because I was like immediately like, why are you not doing this? Oh, well, I did this project where this, and we're doing trigger points. So when you get a certain, like even on Zapier, we're doing like quick Zapier projects, which is when you get a trigger in an email, you could automatically reply to it with something, or when you get a like on social media or an invoice request, it automatic. Why can't you do that with mortgages? Once you get a claim in, why can't you automatically have a trigger point to all the third-party people that you need to get the license and the appraisal? Why can't you just immediately email an appraiser with the details? Why can't why can't we have a system that reads before we've had that 10 years? You're like, why are you not? So, well, we want to do that. We're really forward-thinking. Executive board, we're looking for people to get on and do it. Like, just starting really slow and not trying to sell yourself or sell anything. Just be like, to the person that's trying to hire, like, why are you not doing this? Like, what are you looking for? That sounds really simple, but just being really calm, not trying to force anything, and just asking questions. And when they respond, well, I did this and I did that. Are you looking to do that? Oh, yeah, I am looking to do that. Oh, yeah, that's really cool. Well, the next thing. And there's like a connection there, because it's a back and forth and it's a question. And they feel like you're trying to connect with them. And then I'm replying, so we're both having back and forth, even though I've controlled the whole interaction. I ask the question, they answer, I answer back, I ask. Like, that's a whole loop, if that makes sense. And I go to the next thing. And it was just like the conversation. That's the big thing professionally that's been really good, helpful at least. I've noticed that's when I have the best conversation with professors and professionals.
And also not being afraid to ask those questions.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of kids would probably be nervous, or you'd be like, oh, I shouldn't touch on that. Like, they've got their systems in place. I'm sure they respected it that you brought it up, at least just to check and see, like, why aren't you doing this? Or what's the reasoning? And I feel like,
why, even not like a question, not even accusatory, like,
yeah, just
are you
generally
looking to do this? Is this something you guys have in the future? Like, what are your plans? Something like vague and gentle, not too like, you should be doing this. Like, are you looking to do something like that?
Yeah. And that's what people like to see is curiosity. I feel like.
Curiosity.
I guess this is a good kind of transition point just to start wrapping up a little bit. Is you mentioned automation, and I feel like that's something that's trending kind of in line with AI, because there's a lot of different AI software you can use to automate processes. And one of the things we've seen a lot of talk about, but we really haven't learned too much about, and I'm curious your opinion on this, is coding with artificial intelligence. Do you see, or just business in general, do you see a lot of either like softwares or apps coming out where, for example, like if we wanted to make a gas money app again in like 10 years from now, like would that be just something we put in a computer? Like how I guess the question I'm trying to ask is how much do you see AI affecting automation in the next like decade? Like to what degree?
Yeah, I'll try and not give a generic answer. I'll try and give like some moderately unique answer. So if you want to completely automate a system, you have to accept a certain margin of error on anything, on employees, on usually you want like 99.6 sigma, so like the 6 percentile. I'm sorry, that's not it, the 6 standard deviation error. So like 99.9999, whatever people call 59. So 5 nines in a row. That's a big one for some processes, mainly like industrial. But you have to understand there's a certain margin for error, and there's certain checks in place in the system to make sure that an error doesn't get out. So there's always going to need to be checks. It's a lot of people are like, oh yeah, AI could do this once, so it could automate it. Like it did this for me when I was on ChatGPT. But if you want to automate a system, there has to be checks in place. There's got to be quality assurance. It's got to not be able to make any errors. There's got to be a lot of things in place for it to be perfect. And if not perfect, very close to perfect and easy to pivot. So one thing with AI, I was doing the College of Law presentation today, and they asked me to use Copilot because the university just spent a lot of money getting a Copilot license. So I asked it to write this legal document for me. And I give it everything. I give it the details, which is really big. And I'll get to that in a second. But I give it all the details. I give it the template. Give it everything. I'm like, write this for me. And it says, sorry, I'm not able to generate legal documentation. So Copilot is GPT-4, except it's in a different app because it's Microsoft's app, because Microsoft owns GPT pretty much. And then I was like, all right, this is done. Let me go over to GPT-4. I did it right away because you can put certain sensors on an AI model. So a lot of things you ship. One problem is if there's certain sensors on it, it'll be like, sorry, I can't do that. Or it won't do it for you, or something like that. That's another issue you run into. Or it'll be like, I'm not sure, but I think this is the best thing because that's the least liability answer they can give. So there's a certain level of like authority that a human can put on and be like, this is my way, this is how I did it. And they can defend it back and forth. If you really question an AI model, a lot of the times it'll back down because that's how it's trained. Another thing is data leakage. So if you prompt ChatGPT on anything, they're going to train the next model off those prompts, and they're going to fine tune their model based off the responses. So you need to get an enterprise license, and they say they won't access your data at all. But obviously they say that on a lot of things. So that's one thing. A lot of companies are not so willing. They won't close systems. So they either have to build a model themselves using open source, and they need to now hire an AI developer who's going to cost a lot of money. So that's one thing. And you can't just have it plugged into ChatGPT because then your company's secrets are probably going to get leaked. So that's a problem. The system having a certain margin for error, the kind of indecisiveness from AIs a lot of the time, that's how they're trained, data leakage. And I just, in general, we've been doing automation for a long time. It's not something new. You could automate with simple if-then statements in simple systems. So it's something that's new. It's something that's going on. Like we used to have switchboard operators, which are people that used to like literally switch the switches on computers to get you to the right port, to get you to the internet and not. So obviously that's not a thing. That's been automated not by AI, just by simple if-then statements that switches in the computer. So it's really easy to be like, AI is going to automate this, but there's always a certain margin, and there's a liability factor there too. So it's one of the things in law that like if someone messes up a case and they drop the ball, and AI drops the ball on a $200 million case, is it the lawyer that used ChatGPT? Is it ChatGPT? Is it the partner that didn't check? The lawyer that used Chat? Like who you have to factor in a lot of things when you're building a really complex system, which most businesses are. So the possibilities are extended a lot, but there's a lot of conversations that need to happen before we're like automate processes. With the current GPT-4, I don't think any meaningful business can be automated, but they're coming out with new models every week and they say they're going to get better. So maybe their margin of error and their reasonability goes up. So I can't speak when it might even be in June, which is GPT-4 is GPT-5 is going to come out, and I don't know about that. There's a lot of factors that go in on that. It's really easy to say, oh, we'll automate it, but what it comes down to why I started Gain is when you actually get deep into like, let's do this thing. Let's actually do the task that we set out to do. And once you try automating your entire business, you'll be like, there's a lot of limitations. And AI's right now with GPT-4 is really powerful. It could help one-on-one a person a lot. Person uses it, but it's a lot of demos, the automation aspect of it. It's a lot of demos, it's simple tasks you're automating. And that's not an enterprise company level thing. And I know because I do a lot of demos and I'm like, this is just a task. This is like one task, but you couldn't automate all of your tasks right now at least. So there's got to be improvement with the models. I don't think for a little bit. I mean, we'll see if that, and they can drop a new model anytime and it's smarter than us. And that's it, or maybe, but there's a lot that goes into it, even getting it to that point.
So, I mean, the moral of that story, first of all, that was a fantastic answer. That was very in depth. It sounds like from all the things that you've seen, it has to come a long way to even take, let's say, developer area or a developer sector of a company. Like it has to come a long way. Like it's got a long way. And there's so many different, like you said, conversations, different liabilities that have to be covered, different percentages of accuracy that need to be way higher in order to even get to that level. So it's either a long way away or if there's huge leaps.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I'm hesitant saying the word long, because I mean they could drop tomorrow and it'd be like this is a new big thing. As far as like automation, the way I like to think about it, and optimism obviously is good. Sometimes you could be incorrectly optimistic, but I always say like if you're one developer, why can't you just do what a company used to be able to do? And if you're really good at what you do and you could use these tools to your advantage, why can't you automate most of your processes? And we had a coding workshop where we talked about software development because that's applicable to you guys. And I said, well, if you're a junior developer and you're doing like menial debugging tasks, so much of coding it's like stupid things, honestly. Like you make an error and you're just like troubleshooting it and then you realize like you misspell something somewhere. And you could spend 2 hours like testing all these complex data science, comp sci principles, and you're going through all these crazy things. It's like you just misspelled a variable. And that happens more than you would think, especially with devs. And it's so easy to be like, oh, they're so crazy smart devs. They're just people as well. Like everyone makes very dumb mistakes a lot of the time. Even if you're very well trained, doctors make egregious errors sometimes, and people die from that. So the stakes are higher there. But yeah, like I said, I mean, big leaps, you never know. As far as developers, why are you thinking about it as like, oh, we're going to automate this away? Why are you not thinking about this? I could use this to build something really good. You have to make your gas money out by yourselves. Maybe have one guy like check on it, but you could do so much more groundwork. You make it look the way you want. It could be really, really high quality. Maybe you check some of your servers with a professional. But you could use it as an opportunity to build more, not just to cut. Like that's the whole point of it. And a lot of people are just like cut. Maybe because they lack the vision to build. I think you should be thinking about building more than just let's get rid of a lot of people. People should be using their expertise and their creativity and their knowledge to build new things, not just automate and kill and cut. Which is where a lot of people's minds go, unfortunately. Maybe like barbarian humans.
Yeah.
Genetic aspect to that, but.
No, especially in the business world, I feel like a lot of people need to look at it more as, like you said, an opportunity to like increase efficiency. There's a lot of things you can use it for, especially today. But I mean, even in the next few years, the next decade, who knows what you're going to be able to do with it. And like you said, I think one of the things I like about Gain is it's encouraging people to learn about it and then form their own opinions on it based on what they learn in AI. And there's so many people out there that they'll just see like the hype, like you were talking about, where they'll either say, oh my gosh, it's going to take all of our jobs, or oh, I'm going to go get rich with this using like some like TikTok automation or some stupid thing like that. A lot. Yeah, and it's and if you look more in the middle, you realize that it's a great asset to use if you can learn how to prompt it, learn how to talk with it, and eventually probably not necessarily automate. I mean, automation would be a large part, but just use it as a tool to help increase your business's output. And I think for the purpose of this podcast, that's what, if people could take away one main thing, it's just learn more about it and figure out how you can use it, because if you're not using it, you're pretty much just going to be falling behind other companies that decide to.
Yeah, and I don't know how much more in depth you guys want me to go, but if you think about how you do anything, it's not just like, oh, do this. Like, you don't tell your developer do this. You give your developer a specific set of business requirements. You have exactly what you need, and maybe AI replaces dev teams. Good, like that's a good thing. Like, people could do. There's less barriers to entry for people to do really creative and awesome things on the internet, which is what connects everyone. Like, that's a good thing. And I know a lot of comp sci students, they get so intertwined in like, oh, I love solving coding problems. Like, maybe you have to solve the more complex ones. And that's a good thing. That's why we need devs to check our things and to make sure everything's perfectly correct. And if there's a problem with some data issue or bits and orders aren't going through for some reason, then they're solving that. And that'd be really cool. But there's a lot of code that gets written by hand that you're like, I don't like writing every line by hand. I use ChatGPT a lot because a lot of my data analysis tests and things like that are repetitive. I'm cleaning data, I'm moving columns around, I'm filtering out stuff, running tests and similar tests, regressions and building some models. But I don't want to do that over and over again if I've done it before. There's an expertise to it, but like if we have a model that could be able to just flawlessly do the basic stuff, that's awesome. So you don't get like too stuck in the mud. Always work with the tools, evaluate what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses. And you're always going to, who knows? But as far as I can see now, you're always going to need to know, like, what do we need? What are your require? And that's what you feed the AI. You need to give it really detailed instructions. What prompting is, you just give it really detailed instructions. Because if not, it's going to guess. And it could be really, really smart, be smarter than us. But if you give bad instructions, and it's not going to give you what you want. You can give like people from like Stanford right now your app, but if you're like, yeah, we want just like a gas money app, you can get like the Stanford hackathon comp sci national championship winning team. I don't even know if Stanford won, but we'll say Stanford was the best, and they're not going to give you what you want. So you're always going to need to know what you need, what your customers want. That's a big thing. Just the certain business acumen, a certain understanding what people want, certain level of empathy. I think that's what was going to be important more than anything else.
Yeah, and well, you mentioned empathy. Like, that's the thing. It's not going to be, you put in something and it's going to give you exactly what you want. Even if AI can, let's say down the road, there's no more dev teams. It's not going to give you exactly what your client base wants, or your, for gas money, what the contractors want or the clients want or whatever it is. It's just going to continuously be fine tuned. But with the empathy side, there's not going to be emotion where, if you're really in tune, maybe personably with your dev team, like, we have great conversations with the people that we work with now, but our last one with Chris Dayton, great dude. And we would have great conversations. He understands, the mission of the company and how it can affect people. And this, here's some suggestions on that. I don't know if AI can give those emotional, pieces of advice. Maybe if it understands humans emotionally. I don't know if it can get that far, but maybe it can. So yeah, it's weird. There's a lot of people on, Robbie mentioned kind of the spectrum. There's people on both sides. It's going to get to a point where it's smarter than humans and it's going to have a mind of its own and it's going to take over. And then there's the other ones, we can use this to do a lot of crazy things and short the market or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird world. I think a lot of people with hype, how much do you think, I guess we're definitely going to wrap up here pretty soon. I guess one of my last questions, like, how much do you think that, social media in general has had to do with the, just what AI is all about?
Yeah, I'm not to, give any discredit to AI. Obviously, very impressive what's going on, but there is a lot of hype involved. Like I said, a lot of people really don't know what's happening. They're just saying this is how it is. This is what it's going to be in the future. Because, like I said, Sam Altman, he's an entrepreneur. He has to have complete faith and optimism in his idea. He has to, or else it's not going to succeed. It's the only way it can succeed if it does. But I remember watching like The Big Short, which is a movie probably everyone's seen. They talk about the hot man fallacy, where it's going to get better. It's going to continue to get better. and you just see people on Twitter posting exponential graphs, like, oh, it's going to keep growing exponentially. They don't know that for sure. There might be a limitation on our current algorithms, that no matter how much data we feed them, there's just a certain limitation. They can't really. That's a possibility. And people call me, no, you don't understand. I don't. I'm not saying I do, but you also don't know with 100% certainty that there's certain influences, no matter how much data you feed it. And we're probably running out of human data. And if you want to go into AI, it's almost training it mainly off like AI made data now at this point, because we're almost running out of. That's what a lot of people say for the future. But unless our algorithms really get better, there's this maybe there will be a cap, and you don't know that there won't be. But people, they like listening to the extremes. Obviously, politics, everyone knows that. And any kind of an existential threat to them, they're also going to give a lot of attention. So one of the things I gave in my first game presentation, I've given a couple times, I've fit in every now and then on certain game presentations, is that there's people on Twitter like, this is going to kill this job. Look at me do this one demo, it's over. And they're like, it's so over. That's always like a big thing people say at the bottom of tweets, which I honestly just find funny at this point. It's turned like almost a meme. And then a lot of people will say, oh, we'll use these 5 tips to make $10,000 a week. And that gets people because like cash grab money. And there's a surprisingly little amount of discourse on Twitter of people talking like this. It's very extreme. And tech people are like, they're optimistic. They're really drawn into their products, their ideas, and they have to be. But not a lot of people have really like tempered conversations about this, especially online. I don't think anyone really on social media has well thought out tempered conversations, but that seems to be where people communicate the most. And that's not a bad thing, I don't think, because there's really no other way to communicate with people quickly and efficiently the way social media is. But obviously social media is the way it is. And there's more bots on Twitter now, which I hate, but that's a side point. But even people, they'll just post the clickbait stuff, the AGI is here, it's going to kill us all by 2030, and people click on that thread and they make a lot of money off that. And there's a lot of things you have to think about, how the Twitter algorithm works, how social media algorithms work, and how it's going to feed the most controversial topics. And that's how the real media works too, as well. You see in politics and sports even too. People have a fear of death. That's going to get a lot of algorithm, a lot of feeds. So you have to think about that, and then think about the way people building the models think. Of course, they're going to have complete guarantee in their products because they got $10 billion shoved into it, or probably more at this point by Microsoft. Like, they can't fail. They can't even invite the idea of failing into their brain. And not a lot of people really think that way. And like, if I had any wisdom, that's not something I hear a lot either. It's like, you have to think the way these people think. Everyone's like, oh, it's over. Ilya saw God in a computer. Ilya is the guy that tried overthrowing Sam Altman. He saw God in the computer and we're all going to die. And that seems to be like discourse on Twitter, which is honestly a shame. And it's that and bots have gotten bad too. But I guess we'll just have to learn to live with that, or at least combat it. But yeah, about anything like parting words to give would be just like, honestly think. Like, and that's some things I say in game meetings too. I'm like, yeah, like, sounds really stupid, but just like take in a lot of opinions and form your own. Like, don't listen to just me. Don't listen to just these people. And you just be shocked at how good advice that is and how few people actually, they say they apply, but how people actually apply it day to day, which is surprising. But I mean, I'm sure you guys know it's true as well.
Yeah, no, just think for yourself, do research on it. And like you said, there's a lot of noise out there, a lot of clickbait, a lot of people trying to make money. And I think it just comes down to doing your research. And it's, you got to put actually like look deeper than just surface level for a lot of these things. And that was good parting words for AI. And I guess one last question. We always ask this to our guests, but if you had any advice, just reflecting on the leadership experiences you've had, experiences in running GAIN, experiences with DMC, for a young adult who's looking to do similar things or just looking to be successful, what would that advice be?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm like the poster child for success to give.
Well, I mean, you've ran a club. Like,
yeah.
Just what has helped you?
Yeah, what's helped me? Like I said, take a lot of different opinions in. I had professors that were really into it. Professors that I don't really know. There's people online that are saying AI is hype. There's people online saying it's going to kill us all. I don't take any one opinion for what it's worth. So definitely talk to people. Conversations are good. Like I said, social media is a terrible way to interact for the most part, but it seems to be like the best thing we have.
Mm-hmm.
So think for yourself. I mean, it's such a simple thing to say. And then once you really thought about it, put together your requirements for anything you do. Think about if this goes right, what's going to happen in 3 to 5 years. What specific things do I need to do? What needs to be done before that can happen? Be intentional. And then once you've done all that, once you're intentional, once you've thought about it, once you've intentional about what you want to do, once you identify everything you have to do to get there, just go for it. It's really like with speaking, you just have to do it. And you're going to mess up, but like I messed up a billion times, probably in this podcast as well, but you just have to go for it. But if you do those things and you're prepared, that's all the preparation is. And once you're prepared, just go.
Take the leap.
Take the leap, Austin.
Yes, sir. Awesome.
Damn right.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for hopping on. All the listeners out there, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, give it a nice 5-star rating. Leave a comment below and subscribe to us for more episodes coming soon. So thank you so much. And like we always say at the end of our podcast, go get that gas.
Go get that gas money.